Part 47. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Me. Chapter 462. Hearing this, Ping Suizong, who was happily eating melon on the side, was startled, and his jaw almost dropped to the ground. No, did he break any rules by just eating a piece of melon? Snap! There was a crisp sound. When everyone turned to look over, they saw Ping Suizong kneeling on the ground. I saw Ping Suizong raising 3 fingers and placing them next to his temples. No matter what I know that I shouldn't know, I promise not to tell it. Although he once said that it would be better to die. But that's when humanity must lose. Seeing that scholar civilization and the Eldar are at odds, what is the difference between dying now and dying on the eve of victory? Facing Ping Suizong's sincere expression, Gao Qiang thought about it and realized that just because of the wet dream, he really wouldn't be killed by others. Well, you get up first. Gao Qiang gave Ping Suizong a reassuring look, and then turned to look at Wei Meng. Changing the subject, put this matter aside for now, how about you put on some clothes first? Clothing. Wet Dream showed a confused look at first. Apparently, she never wore any clothes when she was a dream weaver. But Gao Qiang said so she could only do as the Romans do. Wei Meng stretched out her hand and snapped her fingers, and a lace coat that was not covered almost where it should be was put on her body. Is this the kind of clothes? Wei Meng asked. Ahem. Gao Qiang coughed twice, wiping away a trace of blood from his nose. He didn't expect that the old monster who had been living in a wet dream for who knows how many years would actually be completely clueless about clothing and look as innocent as a little white flower. Which one? How about you wear more clothes? Gao Qiang suggested. So. Wei Meng snapped his fingers and changed his clothes in an instant. Put on more clothes. After changing several times, Gao Qiang nodded with satisfaction when looking at Wei Meng's image as a lady in a white patterned evening dress. That's right. I have to say that the ability to weave dreams is really convenient. You don't even have to put on clothes yourself, which is a really suitable ability for me Chong. Facing Gao Qiang's satisfied look, Wei Meng pressed down the hat of her evening dress with some uneasiness. But it's so tight and uncomfortable. Do you humans like to lock yourselves in such a cocoon? It's clothes, not cocoons. Gao Qiang sighed. Wei Meng had never had the concept of clothes, and it would be difficult to correct her thoughts for a while. I can only wait and adjust slowly later. Right. Gao Qiang suddenly looked at Wei Meng and asked, can you cancel the dream you weaved? Now in this battle, Gao Qiang has gotten everything he wants. The miracle path has reached the 7th level, and there is also a weapon called the Wet Dream, which can bring powerful territorial types into a dazzling state at any time. Apart from this, there seems to be nothing else that interests Gao Qiang in this battle. There may be a few more Qingtian fortresses. But those cores are just miracle fragments. Even if they are all collected, it will not be possible for Gao Qiang to advance to the next level of the miracle path. In this case, it is better to go to a higher level battlefield. This is also the reason why Gao Qiang asked this question. If we want to end the war quickly, the fallen empire in the brilliant period may not be as efficient as the awakening period. But Wei Meng shook his head. No. The dream that has been made up is reality, and the only person who can escape from the dream is you. Just me, Gao Qiang pointed at himself and asked. Jian. Wei Meng nodded firmly. Gao Qiang immediately glanced to the side. How about we discuss how long it will take to win the battle in this state? Hey, don't you really want to try to escape from the dream? Hello, hello. The cry of the wet dream fell on deaf ears. Gao Qiang quickly walked to the console and called out 401. Help me calculate how long it will take to occupy all the known areas on the star map based on our current capabilities. Calculating for you. Estimated time, 10 years and 7 months. 10 years. Gao Qiang didn't expect that it would take so long. But thinking about it, the size of the current space era is more than a star and a half larger than the Thousand Planets era. The previous attack on Qingtian Fortress was a straight line, so it would naturally be faster. But if you want to sweep every star field in the entire world, I'm afraid most of your time will be spent on the road. However, 10 years is too long to achieve victory. When Gao Qiang was thinking this, he inadvertently turned Xuezong's face aside in shock. Pointing at Ping Xuezong, Gao Qiang changed the question. If we use the joint strength of other human lords and continue to develop, how many years will it take us to conquer all the star fields? This time, the results calculated by 401 were indeed much faster. Estimated time, 3 years. Are you planning to use 3 years to turn the tide of the war? Ping Xuezong was confused and became more and more surprised as he listened. No, strictly speaking, it takes 3 years to eliminate all resistors. 401 corrected. In calculations, we will enter the technological explosion stage in the first 2 years while absorbing all technologies. We will enable cyclic technological research. In the first short year and a half, our technological level will surpass all known life. Although 401's words are arrogant, Gao Qiang knows that what it said is true. After defeating the enemy, the brilliant empire will seize all the enemy's technology trees and use them directly. At the same time, it also has a full 10 times the research speed. Combined with other bonuses, the research results of the brilliant empire in 1 year are comparable to the efforts of other forces in 10 or even 20 years. It doesn't take many years to surpass the limit of this war game. But 3 years is still too long. Gao Qiang shook his head disappointedly. Now we haven't entered the infinite battlefield yet. How many 3 years can there be in life? Even if Gao Qiang has a way to increase his lifespan, 3 years, 3 years, and 3 years. If when he goes back, the people he knows have already changed, what's the point? Oh, right. Gao Qiang suddenly realized why he had to fight this war game to death. When Qin Sui was sold before, he seemed to have seen a good thing in the assets of the scholar civilization lord. He quickly opened the transaction record to check. As expected, Gao Qiang found an item. Emergency evacuation device, special item. Introduction: some people may regard escape as a synonym for cowardice, but in our eyes, only fools would make unnecessary sacrifices. Effect: when you encounter a fatal crisis, you will immediately exit this war game. This special item is like having an extra life. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 463. Gao Qiang is very sure that in most cases, such a rare item will not be available on the market. This kind of rare item that automatically leaves the war game when it is fatally injured should be considered the highest grade item among the same type of rare items in a sense. If it weren't for Qin Sui's move. Even if the main fleet blew the twin fortress into pieces, Gao Qiang might not be able to successfully kill the scholar civilization lord in the fortress. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang couldn't help but look at Qin Sui again. Qin Sui is indeed his lucky star. Has her luck begun to affect the present so long ago? But it's good this way. With the emergency escape device, Gao Qiang doesn't have to deal with the mess of this war game himself. Of course, Gao Qiang is not going to just leave like that. Moving to Ping Xuezong's side, Gao Qiang patted Ping Xuezong on the shoulder. If you were in charge, would you have the confidence to win this war game? Me. Ping Xuezong pointed at his nose in disbelief. If the Nova fleet had not been destroyed, he might have had some confidence. But the Nova fleet, one of the top combat forces of mankind, collapsed under the attack of the foreign substitute fleet such as Advanced No. 2. How could he dare to say that he had the confidence to win? Please don't make me feel bad. Ping Xuezong smiled bitterly and waved his hand. I believe that as long as your deeds are spread, it will be easy to become the leader of this war. How can it be my turn? So, you have no confidence. Gao Qiang frowned. This is not good. Although he doesn't want to delay time in this battle, he doesn't want to watch mankind fail. What if I hand over the twin fortress to you? Gao Qiang asked tentatively. Although the core mass anchor of the twin fortress has been taken out, its own strength cannot be underestimated. Since the twin fortress has been assigned to Gao Qiang knows that the launch of the Liang cannon does not rely on the mass anchor. Rather, the biggest role of the Gemini fortress core is to accelerate the attack speed of the Sun cannon to superluminal speed. But if the core is lost, the Sun cannon can also attack the outside world at the speed of light. Gao Qiang told Ping Suizong everything about the Gemini fortress. After hearing this, Ping Suizong did not show much joy, but continued to hesitate. If you don't mind, I will tell you the truth, Ping Suizong said after thinking for a while. Just a Gemini fortress that has lost its core will not help the overall situation. First of all, it cannot execute the superluminal star-destroying force, and the threat level will be reduced a lot. At the same time, the Gemini fortress is just a building, which can be a temporary safe haven for some fleets. But the real execution of the war is still the existing fleets of other forces. Is that so? Gao Qiang heard the meaning of Ping Suizong's words. Anyway, the overall human beings were suppressed too badly in this war. Even if the alliance was broken, humans could not immediately produce a fleet that could intervene in the war between the two sides. At this time, Yimen suddenly whispered, "How about, let me try." You. Gao Qiang looked at Yimen. As a mythical race dreamweaver, Yimen has the power to overturn the war situation. Gao Qiang believes that. But would it be too difficult for her to help other lords become stronger? It's not a very difficult thing. Yimen smiled, then took off her evening hat and waved it in front of Ping Suizong. Ping Suizong only felt that his vision was covered by the brim of the hat, and when he looked again, he was already in the twin fortress again. Puff. The sound of tearing flesh came from Ping Suizong's ears. Turning his head, Yimen's high heels were stepping on the head of a scholar civilization lord, piercing his brain. When he was dying, the other party showed an extremely terrified expression. It seemed that he didn't expect that he would be discovered by humans even though he hid so well. Don't be so surprised. Yimen wiped the sole of his shoe on the floor and explained to Ping Suizong casually, there are still some of your hostile lords left in the twin fortress. Before I left, I placed marks on them. I wanted to come back for a buffet, what a pity. After sighing, Yimen waved to Ping Suizong, signaling Ping Suizong to follow. Ping Suizong glanced at the scholar civilization lord who died so abruptly, and he dared not disobey Yimen's intention. Following Yimen, he came to the control room of the twin fortress. What he saw was the flat skin of Chuletin. The layer of dried meat was still pressed to the ground by the security machine. Yimen had bypassed the security machine and inserted his finger into the device that Chuletin used to connect to the twin fortress. ZZ. Authority detected. Yimen, citizen, welcome to visit. The control panel of the twin fortress soon lit up. Since Gao Qiang was not there, Yimen, as the highest status in the control room, smoothly took over the operation of the twin fortress. Now, fear me, Yimen suddenly said. What? Before Ping Suizong could react, he saw the two security machines pressed on Chuletin suddenly attack him. Relying on his own strength, Ping Suizong wanted to resist, but he underestimated the power of the security machine. As the most advanced security machine of the scholar civilization, even the 7th level Lord Path that is completely biased towards personal combat power will not be able to get away with it. Not to mention that there is also the influence of Yimen. Ping Suizong was defeated before he could resist for 2 rounds. What are you doing? Being pressed to the ground by the security machine, Ping Suizong's hair stood up and cold sweat kept dripping. In his eyes, aliens are aliens, even if they become human, they will never sympathize with humans. It was okay when Gao Qiang and others were there just now, but now that he was alone in the same room with Yimen, a sense of fear instantly swept Ping Suizong. Yes, that's it. Yimen gently tapped his red lips and showed a contemptuous smile. This is the expression that a lowly species should show. Fear me, and respect me. Let me release the deepest fear in your heart. Not knowing what he saw, Ping Suizong's eyes were quickly disintegrating. In extreme fear, he could even feel his pounding heart. Correspondingly, when facing Ping Suizong, Yimen's aura became stronger. Feeling the gushing power, Yimen turned her head and inserted all 10 fingers into the connection with the Twin Fortress. Now, she is the heart of the Twin Fortress. She is the Twin Fortress, and the Twin Fortress is her. In Ping Suizong's eyes, Yimen's figure gradually merged with the entire fortress itself. As Ping Suizong's fear intensified, the Twin Fortress also underwent corresponding changes. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 464. The shield modules that were originally removed by the main fleet have all been repaired. The scarred outer armor is now brand new. And this is just the beginning. Since Yimen has become Gao Qiang's subject, Gao Qiang's technology tree is also shared with Yimen. Recalling the contents of the technology tree, facilities that did not exist before have sprung up in the Twin Fortresses. Until Yimen felt that everything was enough. It's okay. As Yimen snapped his fingers, the dream no longer deepened Ping Suizong's fear. After waiting for another 10 minutes, Ping Suizong suddenly broke free from the dream, gasping for breath. Anyone who has not experienced it personally will not understand what he has just experienced. In the endless fear that came, he was as small as a grain of sand. No, not even a grain of sand. I am still alive. After gradually regaining consciousness, Ping Suizong kicked his legs away from Yimen's position. At this moment, there was only fear in his eyes when he looked at Yimen. Devil, you are simply a devil. No, the devil is much kinder and weaker than me, Yimen emphasized. Please don't describe me with those slightly tastier snacks, it's an insult to me. Hearing this, Ping Suizong decisively shut his mouth. Yimen glanced at the poor man who was almost tortured to collapse by himself. Take a look at your new base, I won't accompany you anymore. After that, Yimen's figure disappeared in front of Ping Suizong. It was not until then that Ping Suizong dared to breathe heavily with his tense nerves. Only after fighting with Yimen did he deeply realize how powerful Yimen was. Now in Ping Suizong's view, turning this monster into his own people is no less than seeking the skin of a tiger. And Yimen, who disappeared in front of Ping Suizong, now appeared behind Gao Qiang. What you did? Since the Twin Fortress is Gao Qiang's asset, Gao Qiang naturally saw everything that Yimen did to Ping Suizong. Of course, he saw much more than Ping Suizong. Speaking of this, Gao Qiang had to sigh at Yimen's omnipotence. Through Ping Suizong's fear, Yimen had drastically changed the Twin Fortress into another look. Twin Fortress, Dongming /U0026 Liang. Features, steady advancement, star cannon. Due to the use of Gao Qiang's newly acquired gravity, the weakness of the Twin Fortress as a building that cannot move was directly solved by Yimen. Now, the two main bodies of Dongming and Liang no longer have a stable binary star orbit. But under the control of the Twin Fortress, any star can be used as a constant and immovable center point, and the other star can rotate around itself. In this way, as long as the two stars are used alternately as the center point, the problem of movement can be solved to a certain extent. Although the movement speed is not fast. At present, the propulsion speed of the Gemini fortress is estimated to be between half the speed of light and one-third the speed of light. Any starship that activates the superluminal mode can easily get rid of the Gemini fortress. But another new ability of the Gemini fortress should not be underestimated. Stellar Cannon. Effect: with the blue giant as the center point, the red dwarf is thrown out in an arc to achieve a stellar strike. Seeing this, Gao Qiang could almost imagine a situation where a star was launched, swallowed several planets and returned to orbit. Although it still cannot achieve superluminal strikes. But compared to the fiery sun cannon, the fear value imposed by the star cannon is not a little bit. It can only be said that this is a weapon that is very consistent with the characteristics of the Dream. In addition to the two most critical points, the Gemini Fortress has many upgrades. But because there are too many and too complicated, Gao Qiang was too lazy to look at it. With this strategic weapon, the human race's winning rate should be much higher, right? Touching his chin, Gao Qiang felt that leaving these was enough. This is the weapon in Yimen's Dream, a mobile fortress that can continuously launch star-destroying weapons. If humans in the space age can still lose miserably with this twin fortress, Gao Qiang has nothing to say and can only respect the fate of others. First, the control of the twin fortresses was transferred to Ping Suizong through trade. After doing all this, Gao Qiang looked at Yimen and issued an order. "Kill me." "Are you sure?" Yimen licked his lips, as if surprised that Gao Qiang would give such an order. "Sure, Just after Gao Qiang said sure, a large ball of blood suddenly burst out of his chest. Yimen pierced his chest mercilessly, with a smile on his face. "This is your order, Lord." "Ahem." Feeling the passing of life, Gao Qiang also responded with a smile. "Have you called the Lord so soon?" "Dang." Before Yimeng finished speaking, he suddenly turned into a stream of light and entered Gao Qiang's personal page. At the same time, Gao Qiang also received a reminder from the war game. "Due to your fatal injury, your strange item, emergency escape device has been automatically used. You have withdrawn from this battle." Before Gao Qiang could react, he was dragged away by a huge force. When he came to his senses again, he was already standing on the empty ground. This is where he entered the space age, and he came out? Oh, the wound. Gao Qiang remembered that after exiting the war game, wounds and the like would not recover. After being fatally injured, if he did not receive timely treatment, it was not impossible for him to die here. But why didn't he feel any pain? Gao Qiang subconsciously touched the injured area, but found that the wound did not exist. "Ha ha ha, you are scared, ha ha ha." A laugh came from behind Gao Qiang. Gao Qiang turned his head and saw Yimeng, who was 5 meters tall, standing behind him. As long as he dared to raise his head, he would be able to see the scenery under Yimeng's skirt. At this moment, Yimeng was still laughing. "Ha ha ha, it's just a dream to scare you." Wiping away the tears from laughing, Yimeng explained. "I don't know what you did to me. If you die and I die with you, then I am too wronged." Having said that, but Gao Qiang did not forget that once a person dies in a dream created by Yimen, he will die for real. Now it is just because he is not dead, so it is a false dream. Sure enough, the mythical race is not so easy to deal with. Just when Gao Qiang was thinking this, he suddenly saw a prompt popped up in the war game. "Your subject, Yimen, loyalty increased by 1. Looking at Yimen, who was still laughing, and then looking at the loyalty that inexplicably jumped to 62 points. Gao Qiang could not help but curl his lips. It seems that this mythical subject he newly recruited is not as difficult to control as he imagined. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 465. Gao Qiang turned his gaze aside after withdrawing his gaze from Yimeng's crotch. At the same time, he opened the friend interface of the war game. After hesitating for a moment among the friends, Gao Qiang still skipped the pilgrim and clicked on the private chat with Feng Zhou. "Are you there?" In just a few seconds, Gao Qiang got a reply. "What's wrong, do you need help? I can have someone send you a rare item to escape, but you have to repay me in the future." Feng Zhou seemed to be very sure of what Gao Qiang was privately chatting with him for. From the look of it, he should have been prepared long ago. The rare item that escaped from the war game is not something you can take out anytime and anywhere. Gao Qiang rubbed his chin. From Feng Zhou's tone, he seemed to understand why Feng Zhou would recommend the battlefield of the space age to him without any doubt. The situation in the space age is obvious to all, and the participation of ordinary lords will not help the situation at all. Feng Zhou is not optimistic that Gao Qiang can turn defeat into victory in this kind of battle. But he is optimistic about Gao Qiang's potential. Recommending this battlefield to Gao Qiang can be a favor, and taking Gao Qiang out of this battlefield alive can be another favor. As expected of the only son of a member of the board of directors of the Bai Group, he can get a single order twice. However, Gao Qiang's next words disappointed him. "No need. I just want to ask, for the higher level 8th level battlefield, if there is such a battle situation that is about to fail, can we join it?" "What do you mean?" Feng Zhou was stunned for a few seconds in the Bai Group. It took a while to react, and he replied subconsciously, "Have you solved the troubles of the space age?" When he said this reply, Feng Zhou also checked the time. Something is wrong. It has not been long since Gao Qiang entered the space age. This time can't even run the space age map completely, so how can it be possible to reverse the situation? But Feng Zhou soon thought of the forces behind Gao Qiang. With the physique of a saint, if he is willing to lose face, it should be possible to equip a high-level person like the Son of God with a strange item to leave the battlefield. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it this way. It's a pity that he can't sell this favor. Even so, Feng Zhou was not too disappointed. After all, he was a bit easygoing. If he could sell it, he would sell it. If he couldn't sell it, he wouldn't lose anything. Therefore, this episode was quickly exposed by Feng Zhou. Then, facing the new question raised by Gao Qiang, he fell into deep thought. After a while, Feng Zhou gave a response. "I know what kind of battle you are looking for, but unfortunately, this kind of battle does not exist in the 8th level battlefield." Then Feng Zhou explained the concept of the 8th level battlefield to Gao Qiang in detail. If the 6th level battlefield is a galaxy and the 7th level battlefield is a star cluster, then the 8th level battlefield can be called a real universe. This map is really too big and too wide. There are not many 8th level battlefields open. Sometimes, a new 8th level battlefield will appear after 1,000 years. And it is very likely that an 8th level battlefield can accommodate thousands or even tens of thousands of races at the same time. Even the lords of a single race are in the hundreds of millions. Because of this, the price of failure in the 8th level battlefield is very painful, and no race is willing to bear such a price. Each race will continue to inject new forces into the 8th level battlefield to ensure that they will not completely lose in an 8th level battlefield. So to end an 8th level battlefield, at least 1,000 years are used as the basic counting unit. Coincidentally, in the past 1,000 years, humans have not been pushed to the point of exhaustion in any 8th level battlefield. After thinking about it, Feng Zhou continued to reply, "Although the battlefield that perfectly suits your mind does not exist. But if you like crisis, I have a battlefield that is quite suitable for you." Soon, a piece of information was sent to Gao Qiang by Feng Zhou through a friend message. Dark Age, 8th level. Introduction: we won the championship from the savage forest, stood out, and established our own civilization on the remains of nature. And now, when we set our sights on the wider world, we realize how small we are. The world is huge, and the civilization we are proud of is just due to our ignorance. The darkness has never gone away, and now we are horrified to find that we have returned to the law of natural selection. But please always remember that in this new forest, the sun will never rise again. Is there any problem with this battle? Gao Qiang asked with some doubts. The information provided by Feng Zhou did not directly mark the dilemma of mankind like the space age. In fact, it is not mankind that has the problem, Feng Zhou responded. As I said, although mankind cannot win in the 8th level battlefield, it is not in a desperate situation. And the real crisis of this battlefield I recommend to you lies in the battlefield rules themselves. Soon, Feng Zhou explained the characteristics of the Dark Age for Gao Qiang. The first is to prohibit alliances. In the Dark Age, due to the restrictions of the rules, the languages of the lords of various tribes will no longer be interoperable. At the same time, in the friend list column, lords of non-ethnic groups cannot pass messages to each other. Then it is encouraged to kill each other. Every time you kill an enemy lord, you can unlock the option to build a final strategic weapon. In other words, the more foreign lords you kill, the stronger your power will be. There is no such thing as balance in war games. Once a lord successfully develops, perhaps the entire universe will be unable to contain it even if it uses all its strength. In this case, killing every lord you see seems to be the most cost-effective option. In other words, once I am exposed in the Dark Age, it is very likely that all the lords who discover me will attack me, Gao Qiang asked Feng Zhou. That's right. But I personally think that this battlefield is not suitable for you. After Feng Zhou sent the message, he hesitated to speak. In his opinion, the danger level of the Dark Age is too high. This is the only battlefield in the 8th level battlefield that has no diplomacy, does not allow surrender, and is based on complete killing. After thinking about it, Feng Zhou continued to speak. If your goal is just to upgrade to the 9th level and enter the infinite battlefield, there is no need to go to the Dark Ages. A local war in the 8th level battlefield can upgrade thousands of lords to the 9th level. So, how many years will it take for the local war you mentioned to start in each 8th level battlefield? Gao Qiang asked. Feng Zhou roughly estimated, probably less than 10 years. Too long? Gao Qiang frowned. Less than 10 years, that is, it may take 8 or 9 years for a war of this level to break out. In this case, it is difficult for the fallen empire to wake up quickly. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 466. As for using the legacy dream to enter the brilliant stage, it can be regarded as a backup option. But the brilliant stage and the awakening stage can only be said to have their own advantages and disadvantages. The time span of the 8th level battlefield is very large, and each race may have developed for hundreds or even thousands of years. If Gao Qiang enters the battlefield at the brilliant stage, he cannot completely guarantee his own safety. Therefore, in the end, between the two entry stages of brilliant and fallen, Gao Qiang still chose the latter. After all, for Gao Qiang, the most dangerous is also the safest. If there is a choice, Gao Qiang will only choose the legacy dream when he has no choice. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang interrupted Feng Zhou's dissuasion. No need to say more, I'm ready to enter the Dark Age. Have you really decided? Seeing Gao Qiang said so, Feng Zhou naturally didn't want to persuade him anymore. After all, his relationship with Gao Qiang was not very good, and persuading Gao Qiang twice was already a great thing. If Gao Qiang really died in the Dark Age, it can only be said that he made a failed investment. But in fact, he didn't pay anything. The coordinates of the rescue orders in places like the Space Age and the Dark Age are usually thrown into the trash and no one would even look at them. Since you have made up your mind, I wish you good luck. Finally, Feng Zhou sent Gao Qiang a blessing, and the coordinates leading to the Dark Age were sent to Gao Qiang's friend information. Silently memorizing the coordinates sent by Feng Zhou, Gao Qiang waved to the dream behind him. Let's go, accompany me to the last battlefield before infinity. This time when entering the Dark Age, Gao Qiang was not going to tell anyone who was close to him. There was no need to make others worry about him. As the coordinates of the rescue order were confirmed, Gao Qiang, who had just left the war game, entered the battlefield again. Welcome to Dark Age. With a welcome from the war game, a picture from the ancient forest suddenly appeared in front of Gao Qiang. In the picture, countless towering trees rose from the ground, absorbing the light of the sun in the sky. Under the towering trees, the tiny plants can only survive by relying on the weak sunlight coming through the gaps. At this time, an aphid slowly crawled out and bit the grass. The grass gradually withered under the aphid's gnawing. While the aphid was concentrating on gnawing the grass, it did not notice that a mantis was approaching quietly behind it. The mantis was cautious in every step, fearing to alarm the prey in front of it. Until it was only a few centimeters away from the aphid, the mantis moved. In just a moment, its forelimbs flashed through the air like lightning, clamping the aphid tightly. The fragile aphid was unable to compete with the mantis at all, and soon died in the mantis's hands and was eaten by the mantis. However, the mantis, who had a full meal, just wanted to get up, but found that he could not move. It turned out that the spider had already woven a big web on its head. The predator who was just so arrogant, will become someone else's meal in a blink of an eye. At this moment, the scene changed. The center of the spider web became a galaxy, and a fleet was slowly moving in the galaxy. Then countless attacks from outside the galaxy swarmed in. In just a moment, everything in the fleet was destroyed. The opening of the Dark Ages was declared over. Entering the preparation stage, Gao Qiang was still recalling the scene he had just seen. He only got 2 sentences from it. The strong prey on the weak, and the fittest survive. The strong will always be strong, and the weak will always be weak. In the universe of the Dark Ages, the barbaric law of the forest is implemented. The biggest difference between barbarism and civilization is that barbarism will never tell you what fairness is. The trees with the deepest roots will absorb the most nutrients, and the trees that grow the tallest will absorb more sunlight. In the barbaric law of the forest, there will always be only the strongest one who deserves everything. And all the weak are destined to become nutrients for the stronger ones. Gao Qiang felt mixed emotions. So, does this battlefield encourage the strong to swing their swords at the weaker ones? As Feng Zhou said, this 8th level battlefield is really very different. It's a pity that I won't experience that feeling. Because of the influence left by his ancestors, Gao Qiang will not be the weakest in the battle even if he has just joined the battle. He quickly reviewed his abilities. After starting the technology cycle and resetting the accumulated momentum mark, Gao Qiang confirmed that the preparation phase was over. Then Gao Qiang felt the entire universe passing in front of him. He turned his vision and stood in a space station. The entire space station was quiet, empty, and even the lights were not turned on. Is this my territory in this war game? Without a guide, naturally no one could respond to Gao Qiang's question. Just when Gao Qiang wanted to check the type of territory first, a creepy cry suddenly sounded, giving Gao Qiang goosebumps. Who's here? While asking carefully, Gao Qiang gently moved towards the location where the cry came from. Closer, closer. As the sound of crying got closer, a faint light finally appeared in the dark space station. The light flickered and seemed to be able to go out at any time. In Gao Qiang's eyes, a figure similar to a woman's back was sitting in the dim light, crying. If this was a horror movie, Gao Qiang would definitely persuade himself not to approach the other party. But this was not. Gao Qiang continued to walk forward slowly. But then, as if she felt Gao Qiang approaching, the girl's sobbing stopped abruptly. Instead, her head turned 180 degrees to the back. Yimen. Seeing the familiar face, Gao Qiang breathed a sigh of relief. He almost thought that the space station was haunted, but it turned out to be Yimen, fortunately. So, what's wrong with you? Gao Qiang looked at Yimen carefully, and there were still tears on Yimen's face. I'm so scared. Yimen turned her head and huddled between her legs. They told me that this universe is a dark forest, and everyone wants to kill us. Just like now. Gao Qiang looked along Yimen's body. In front of Yimen, the flickering light source was actually a display screen. The screen showed a fleet approaching slowly. They are approaching us, Yimen sobbed and whispered. They will find us and kill us. The sobbing sound continued to come out of Yimen's mouth. I'm so scared, I'm really, so scared. But Gao Qiang didn't notice. Yimen buried his face in his legs, crying and showing a cruel smile. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida. Chapter 467. At this time, someone in the fleet flagship that was moving slowly on the screen also noticed that something seemed to be wrong. There should be no such star field in the star map. Do you think we should be more cautious? A creature with dark green skin reported to his lord. However, what he received was a scolding from his lord. Enough. Slow down now, do you want to be caught up by those iron shells? As he spoke, the lord's eyes were full of fear. He came from a gathering place of the Zeta clan. Although the Zeta clan is not a top powerful race in this universe, it is not a small fish or shrimp that can be easily eaten. But even so, it cannot change the fact that they are now on the run. The problem came not long ago. When the Zeta clan's reconnaissance fleet went out to explore, it found a base of a star-level civilization. According to the speculation of the reconnaissance fleet, that base should have been established by the lords who had just joined this battlefield, and it had not yet developed to the stage of cosmic voyage. Therefore, in order to obtain more shares of the final strategic construction, the Zeta clan launched an attack on this new civilization without hesitation. But they didn't expect it at all. Everything they saw was an illusion. At the moment when the Zeta clan attacked, they were not facing a weak primitive civilization, but an endless fleet of intelligent machines. The weak civilization in their eyes was just a scam from beginning to end. The intelligent machines released the bait, and when the Zeta clan attacked, everything about them was exposed to the electronic eyes of the intelligent machines. The huge gathering place of 15 starfields was swallowed up by the nanotorrent in an instant. That was a force they could not resist at all. Only the reconnaissance fleet that happened to be outside the gathering place barely escaped the attack of the intelligent machines. But it was only temporary. The intelligent machines that swallowed the gathering place had the coordinates of all their fleets. They will be found one day. The fear in the Lord's eyes was still increasing. He felt as if he had been running for countless days and nights, but he couldn't stop. Because those intelligent machines would never get tired. Only by escaping endlessly can he have a chance to survive. Facing the intelligent machine, all he can do is to stay alive, nothing more. Looking at the Lord's terrifying expression, the people under his command opened their mouths, but swallowed back what they were about to say. He felt that something was wrong with the star field the fleet was entering. But at this moment, he really couldn't provoke his lord anymore. The picture returned to the space station. From Gao Qiang's perspective, the fleet of the unknown force was still heading towards their territory. They had already reached the middle of the star system. Due to the restrictions of the Dark Ages, even if Gao Qiang could communicate with them at this moment, he would inevitably face the embarrassing situation of language barriers. Of course, these are not Gao Qiang's most concerned things. What he cares about most at the moment is that Yimen's crying is really scary. Gao Qiang has no idea how to coax a Dreamweaver Lord. However, just when Gao Qiang was anxious, Yimen's crying became more and more wrong. Woo woo puff. Gao Qiang suddenly lowered his head and looked at Yimeng suspiciously. Were you trying to hold back your laughter just now? No. Yimeng raised her head and gently wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. But the hideous smile on her lips could not be covered up. Looking at Yimeng's face with clear lines, Gao Qiang was stunned for a moment. Before this, he had never thought that he would use the word clear lines to describe a human face. So should we say that they are worthy of being a mythical race that weaves dreams? The upper and lower halves of the face can actually have two different expressions at the same time. Seeing Gao Qiang stunned, Yimeng stretched out her slender fingers and tapped the screen. This era is really scary, isn't it, Lord? I'm afraid of them. But they are also afraid of me. When Yimeng's voice fell, the picture displayed on the screen changed. In the star system, the stars were connected by spider silk, and the planets also looked wrong. What? In the fleet flagship, the Zeta leader stood up and looked at the scene in front of him with horror. No, 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 no. That's not a planet, those things are not planets. In his eyes, there is no so-called planet. The planets in front of the fleet are clearly the compound eyes of a spider. Oh my God, a single compound eye is the size of a planet. How terrifying is the other party? I'm afraid that even the Leviathan life that is rampant in the universe is only the size of a hair of the other party, right? Has he just escaped from the clutches of the intelligent machine and broke into the cafeteria of other races? Is it God's will to destroy the Zeta clan? Run, run. A heart-wrenching voice sounded in the flagship. At this moment, the Zeta leader was so scared that he couldn't raise any resistance at all. But it was too late to say this now. They drove into the center of the star system, which was simply putting themselves in the most conspicuous position on the dining table. It's really stupid. The spider silk threads began to gather together, and the space where the fleet was located gradually shrank and collapsed. Then, including the fleet, the entire galaxy suddenly disappeared into the void. It was as if this galaxy had never existed. Burp, full. Yimeng rubbed his bulging belly and burped slightly. Then he glanced at Gao Qiang and laughed. Why, did I scare you just now? Lord Sir. Click. At this time, the entire space station suddenly lit up. Sasha's voice also sounded in the distance. Why don't you turn on the lights in such a dark place? As Sasha's voice sounded, the space station seemed to have the smell of fireworks again. Occasionally, there would be people passing by Gao Qiang. At this time, Gao Qiang realized that in fact, everyone had always been by his side, but he just couldn't see them. Puff, ha ha ha. Yimeng suddenly laughed. You are too easy to tease. He couldn't stand up from laughing, so Yimeng could only roll on the ground with his hands covering his belly. You. Gao Qiang was about to say something when the reminder of the war game sounded again. Your subject, Yimeng, loyalty +5. Looking at Yimeng's loyalty increased to 67 points, Gao Qiang held back what he was about to say. After hitting a stick, he gave a sweet date. Is this the method that subjects should use on their lords? Ahem. Yimeng's laughter was so twitching that he finally stopped laughing. After wiping the tears from the corners of his eyes, Yimeng looked at Gao Qiang and explained himself. Isn't this just simulating the most terrifying creature in this universe so that you can be mentally prepared in advance? So what you mean is that the most terrifying creature in this universe is actually a crybaby? Gao Qiang asked unhappily. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 468. Who said it wasn't? Yimeng shrugged with a smile, affirming Gao Qiang's words. As long as you are happy. After being teased by Yimeng for several times in a row, Gao Qiang rolled his eyes in annoyance. Then he looked in the direction of the screen behind Yimeng. He wanted to know if the images on the screen just now were also false. Don't worry, those are all real. Seeing this, Yimeng walked forward and gently pressed a switch under the screen. The next moment, the star field that had just disappeared returned, but the swallowed fleet had disappeared. At the same time, Gao Qiang also saw his fully opened star map in the Dark Ages. But even in the star map of the fallen empire, there was no trace of this star field at all. It was as if this star field did not exist at all. "Don't look for it, don't you see whose work it is?" As he said, Yiman pointed at himself and raised his head proudly. "Did you do this?" With deep doubts, Gao Qiang tried to check the information of this fake star field through the wargame. Dreamcatcher. Introduction, made by the great mythical race, Dreamweaver, Yiman. It is a bait cage specially used to capture prey. Effect, through the principle of mirage, a fake star field that does not exist is copied in the void. You can actually play with technology. Gao Qiang found the branch to which the Dreamcatcher belongs in the technology tree. It is not the expected mysticism, but is classified in the field of optics. In other words, even if Yiman is not there, other people should be able to replicate the Dreamcatcher through scientific principles. However, in the face of Gao Qiang's surprise, Yiman showed a meaningful smile and raised an intriguing question. "How do you know that the so-called technology is not a dream in the minds of scientists?" This. Gao Qiang was speechless for a moment. He did not expect Yiman to be so proficient in philosophy. Originally, Gao Qiang was thinking whether the wish of the insect catcher was a bit of a loss. Now it seems that catching Yiman, a true hexagonal warrior, is simply a huge profit. Wait, a bug net? Gao Qiang glanced back and forth between the bug net and the Dreamcatcher. Did Yiman use the idea of his own miracle ability in the first second after entering the wargame? "Pay me the copyright fee, you bastard." Ahem, it doesn't matter. Yiman looked away as if nothing had happened. Besides, aren't these abilities completely different? Think about it, your bug net can only capture one life or one object, while my Dreamcatcher is much greater. All the existences captured by the Dreamcatcher are stuffed into my stomach. As she said that, Yiman lifted her clothes, revealing her smooth belly. "Do you want to touch it?" Gao Qiang glanced at Yiman's slightly bulging belly and was silent for a moment. So how did her tiny belly hold an entire fleet? At this moment, Yiman's belly flattened in front of Gao Qiang. "You have killed the Zeta leader, Wyatt Guy, and you have a chance to choose the final strategy." Yiman seemed to have noticed something, and rubbed his palms on his stomach. "Well, I'm not so full at last." However, this sentence seemed to trigger some keywords. Sasha, who was originally bored, pricked up her ears. The whole person instantly moved between Gao Qiang and Yiman, and reached out to touch Yiman's stomach. "Did you steal something delicious while Sasha was away?" "Hey, what are you doing?" When he saw that the person in front of him was Sasha, Yiman instantly slapped the other's hand away and put down his clothes. At the same time, he snorted coldly, "A few pieces of iron lumps, you want to eat them too?" However, Yiman's words were regarded as a provocation by Sasha. Sasha pouted angrily, "There is nothing that Sasha can't eat." "Well, but it would be better if it's meat." "Of course, no matter what I eat, Sasha won't lose." The raging fighting spirit emanated from Sasha, almost condensing into substance. "Do you dare to compete with Sasha? Whoever loses will be eaten by the other party." After seeing this scene, Gao Qiang on the side covered his face with his hands. Why does Sasha always get excited in some inexplicable places? At the same time, a heavy sigh came from behind Gao Qiang. "Hey!" Zhuoluo quickly passed Gao Qiang and hit Sasha on the forehead with a slap. "Don't go too far, Sasha." While speaking, Sasha was dragged aside by Zhuoluo, farther away from Yiman. "So she is obsessed with my taste." Yiman raised his hand and looked at himself with some suspicion. She didn't know why Sasha wanted to eat her so much. Was it just for the fresh taste she had never tasted before? Thinking of this, Yimen stuck out her tongue and licked herself. Well, it was just an ordinary human taste, nothing special. Seeing Yimen being infected with stupidity by Sasha, Gao Qiang couldn't help but twitch his mouth. But he still took this opportunity to check the details of his territory in the Dark Age. Wall of size. Citizens, 1.339 billion people. Combat unit, Eternal Shadow class Void Ship X-1, Ancient Form class Strike Ship X-300. Defense building, Incineration Core. Production building, Black Hole Decompressor, Miracle. Is this production building a miracle building? Looking at the word miracle marked behind the black hole decompressor, Gao Qiang couldn't help but click on its introduction. Miracle building, black hole decompressor. Introduction: the materials in a universe are constant. Each planet has a fixed mineral reserve. If we demand it infinitely, we will exhaust it one day. This forces us to explore, advance, and conquer without any breathing space. But the black hole decompressor solves all problems. Our powerful technology allows us to extract any resources from black holes. Even if we live in a corner, even if we stay at home, we will have a steady supply of minerals and alloys for us to use. We know that from that moment on, we have defeated limited. Effect 1. The black hole decompressor cannot be destroyed by the strike force of the Star Destroyer level and below. Effect 2. When the black hole decompressor is running, it provides 20,000 basic units of alloy or 20 million basic units of any mineral every month. There are only two effects. But after reading the description of the basic units, Gao Qiang was still completely shocked. Because in the description of the basic units, even the richest mining planets can hardly produce more than 100 basic units of minerals in a month. In other words, in terms of mining efficiency alone, the efficiency of the black hole decompressor is equivalent to mining 100,000 of the richest mining planets at the same time. And such mining planets are hard to come by in the universe of the Dark Ages. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shi. Chapter 469. Gao Qiang retracted his gaze from the territory interface and turned his gaze back to Yimeng. He found that Yimeng had stopped moving and was now staring at him. That look was full of amusement. Being stared at by Yimeng, Gao Qiang couldn't help but suggest, "Why don't you tell me about the most terrifying creature in the universe?" Although he suspected that it was made up by Yimeng just to scare him. But to be on the safe side, Gao Qiang thought it would be better to learn more about it. But he didn't expect that after asking this question, Yimeng's eyes became more amusement. "You are talking about disaster." While speaking, Yimeng pointed to Zhulogo's position. "Why don't you ask your good sisters? They know much more about disaster than I do." At this time, Sasha, who was pulled away, finally got her head out from Zhulogo's shoulder. After hearing the name of disaster, she immediately responded. "Is the Lord talking about disaster, sister? I know that. Disaster sister should still be hiding in the room. Do you want me to lead the Lord to find her? Disaster, sister." Gao Qiang was stunned for a second. He couldn't figure out how the two words disaster and sister could be mixed together. Or, take me to see, Gao Qiang couldn't help but say. It was really his curiosity that was aroused by Sasha. At the same time, he also wanted to see what kind of existence the disaster, which was called the most terrifying creature in the Dark Age by Yimeng, would be. "I really can't do anything about you." Seeing that Sasha had completely forgotten the duel he had just proposed to Yimeng, Zhulogo also let go of Sasha's hand. At the same time, he reached out and handed something to Gao Qiang. If the Lord wants to see disaster, it's better to be mentally prepared. Take the thing from Zhulogo's hand. Gao Qiang looked down. Shockwave noise isolating earphones, special item. Effect: customize the range of audible sounds, and all sounds outside the range will be invalidated. After handing the earphones to Gao Qiang, Zhulogo also put a pair on himself and Shashat. Seeing this scene, Gao Qiang's curiosity grew. What on earth is the disaster, and even Zhuo has to do this? After fully armed, Zhuo led Gao Qiang and others to the corridor. Through the corridor's automatic pathfinding mechanism, they were quickly brought to a closed door in the space station. Ding dong. Zhuo pressed the doorbell, but received no response. Is no one here? Gao Qiang asked. No, Zhuo shook his head. This is the room of the disaster, so it's normal now. But pressing the doorbell before entering the door should be a very common etiquette, right? As he said, Zhuo reached out to press the fingerprint lock next to the door. Authorization detected. Zhuo, welcome. With a sizzle, the door opened to both sides, revealing a dark interior environment. This environment is no different from the dream that Yimen had woven to tease Gao Qiang when Gao Qiang just entered the Dark Ages. It was so dark that not a single ray of light could enter, just like the huge mouth of a strange monster, waiting for the arrival of prey. Let's go in. After notifying the existence in the room, Zhuo took the lead and walked in. Wait for my chef sister. Sasha also followed Zhuo without any psychological pressure. Then what are you still doing here? Yimen smiled and put his hand on Gao Qiang's shoulder, half pushing Gao Qiang into the room. After everyone entered the room, the door of the room squeaked and closed automatically. At this moment, the last bit of light from the corridor disappeared completely. The cold and strange atmosphere continued to spread in the room. Click. With a crisp sound, the whole room suddenly lit up. At the same time, Sasha's complaints were heard. I suspect that when our ancestors built this space station, they designed it completely with their feet. Why are the light switches in each room hidden so secretly? The lit room dispelled all the cold feelings. Gao Qiang also saw the whole picture of this room. Pink wallpaper, neatly arranged plush toys, and warm sofas and tables and chairs. Whose room does disaster live in? Hey Lord! At this time, Sasha was standing next to a plush toy that was bigger than a person, waving at Gao Qiang. Sister Disaster is here, Lord, come and see. Hearing Sasha's call, Gao Qiang quickly came to Sasha and looked down. As far as he could see, there was only a little Lolita in a cute western dress, curled up behind the plush toy, with her face completely buried in her legs. She is Disaster. Gao Qiang pointed at the little Lolita who was not as tall as Sasha, with some disbelief in his tone. Although the movements were correct, the person Yimen imitated was indeed good. But from the appearance, Gao Qiang felt that Yimen's performance was more terrifying. It was obviously the same movement, but the little loli in front of him did not have anything to do with horror. It was a bit like the antonym of horror, cute. Yes, this is Disaster's sister. Sasha squatted down and poked Disaster's arm with her hand. Disaster's sister, say hello to the Lord. However, in response to Sasha, it was Disaster who trembled and burst into tears. Woo, woo, woo. No, Sasha didn't mean it. Sasha stood up quickly and waved her hands in bewilderment. Seeing this, Zhuo covered his face helplessly and sighed. He walked to the refrigerator in the room, took out a chewy pudding, and handed it to Disaster. At the same time, he reached out and gently stroked Disaster's short hair. Good boy, there is pudding to eat. Woo. Disaster raised his head carefully and glanced at Zhuo with eyes full of crystal tears. Cook sister. The next moment, Disaster threw himself directly on Zhuo and cried even louder. Woo, 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 Disaster is so scared. Being thrown heavily by Disaster, the pudding in Zhuo's hand also fell to the ground. Sasha's eyes rolled, and she caught the pudding in a lightning speed, and ate it in big mouthfuls. At the same time, she did not forget to find excuses for her behavior. Well, Sister Disaster doesn't like to eat pudding, don't waste it. Zhuo could only glare at Sasha unhappily. In other words, she still had to comfort Disaster, otherwise she must let Sasha know what love education is. After a while, Juluo finally comforted the crying disaster, and stood timidly in front of Gao Qiang, holding the corner of Gao Qiang's clothes with his hands. At the same time, Gao Qiang also opened the interface of disaster's subjects. Disaster. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 470. Disaster. Profession, crybaby. Loyalty, infinite, this unit does not know how to betray. Wait, what kind of profession is a crybaby? Gao Qiang's mouth twitched, but he continued to read. Crybaby. Introduction, as the saying goes, the crying child gets candy. The more indestructible you appear, the more danger will come to you, and vice versa. Features, fragile and sensitive, empathy, emotional catharsis, ancestral protection. Fragile and sensitive, this unit is extremely fragile, and anything can cause it to enter a negative state such as fear and collapse. Empathy, this unit is easily affected by the emotions of others around it. When someone around it has negative emotions, this unit will also enter negative emotions. Emotional catharsis, this unit vents emotions through crying, and the crying will cause real mental damage to the surroundings and trigger ancestral protection. Ancestor protection, when this unit enters the state of emotional catharsis, it will randomly jump to one of the ancient fleet and ancient marine corps according to the location of this unit. Just looking at it this way, Gao Qiang couldn't feel that the other party could be called the most terrifying creature in the universe. So, why is the little sister of disaster called disaster? Gao Qiang couldn't help asking. Sasha licked her lips and thought about the ceiling for a while. I remember it. It seems that it is because Sister Disaster thinks that a terrifying name can better protect her, so she changed her name to Disaster. So the so-called disaster name is just a fortress that a little girl tried to build for herself? Gao Qiang looked at Disaster, who was holding the corner of his clothes, and couldn't help but reach out and touch her head. Because he had adapted to the presence of everyone, Disaster did not continue to cry, but squinted his eyes in enjoyment. Seeing this, Gao Qiang's mood could not help but be healed a little. Although it was not as scary as imagined, it was also very cute. However, at this moment, an alarm suddenly sounded in the space station. At the same time, an electronic prompt sounded outside the room. Lord, we found that the special reconnaissance vehicle is approaching our territory. When the voice sounded, Gao Qiang felt that the hand of Disaster holding the corner of his clothes was a little tighter, as if he was about to cry. Well, it is still very troublesome to take care of such a little girl. But Gao Qiang saw the dependence shown by Disaster, and he couldn't bear to shake her hand away. After thinking about it, he just picked up Disaster and winked at the other three people in the room. Let's go back to the command room. Gao Qiang has made up his mind. If it is still a foreign fleet like just now, let Yimen kill them with the same trick. Following Gao Qiang's signal, several people quickly returned to the command room. The expected foreign fleet did not appear. At this moment, a strange-looking flying vehicle is being monitored on the large screen in the command room. From the outside, it looks a bit like a big pot cover flying in the universe, but the arrow in the center is very slender, and I don't know what it does. This thing should be a probe of the intelligent machine. Yimen spoke first. Don't look at me with such surprise. Seeing Gao Qiang looking at him, Yimen smiled and flicked his finger, and explained briefly. I have been in this battlefield for 20 or 30 years, okay. With Yimen's explanation, Gao Qiang finally understood why Yimen felt like returning home after coming to the Dark Ages. Because this era is simply designed for the Dreamweaver race. In the Dark Ages, due to the inability to communicate, everyone is guessing the true intentions of other races. Trapped in the unknown and uncertainty, fear naturally arises. And the fear that emanates everywhere is no less than the opening of a buffet canteen for Yimen, allowing her to eat and drink for free. In the Dark Ages for 20 or 30 years, Yimen doesn't know how many races she has fought against. Only the stone-headed intelligent machine without dreams can make Yimen lose interest. At this point, Yimen rolled his eyes. If you hadn't smelled so good at that time, I wouldn't have been willing to leave such a precious place. By the way, I don't eat intelligent machines. In order to avoid Gao Qiang from making any too outrageous demands, Yimen took the lead in stating her bottom line. Although she could swallow the starship together when facing the Zeta clan. But there are differences between iron lumps. For things like intelligent machines, Yimen can't even stuff them into her stomach, let alone digest them. Okay. Since Yimen is unwilling to deal with the probe at the moment, Gao Qiang is not going to force her. It's just a small reconnaissance vehicle anyway. If you want to deal with this thing, isn't it easy for Gao Qiang to deal with it with his current power? Are you going to destroy it? Yimen glanced at Gao Qiang. Even if she closed her eyes, she could guess what he was thinking of an ordinary human like Gao Qiang. I advise you not to do that. For this statement, Yimen also quickly gave an explanation. In Yimen's description, the biggest role of reconnaissance devices like probes is to explore the existence of civilization. In other words, if Gao Qiang takes the initiative and destroys the probe, it will be exactly what the intelligent machine race wants. Each probe is closely connected to the central database of the omnipotence. A scrapped probe is equivalent to directly exposing the existence of foreign forces in this star field. It is equivalent to Gao Qiang directly exposing his territory to the eyes of all the lords of the omnipotence. Unlike other eras, in this war game, the number of weapons for the final strategy is excessive. After all, every time a foreign lord is killed, a final strategy can be selected. This is equivalent to an ordinary person holding the launch button of a nuclear bomb, with an attack force that is completely inconsistent with his own defense. In the memory of the dream, the favorite final strategy of the omnipotence is a strike weapon called the nanoturret. Its effect is that it can carry out a devastating attack on the target star system thousands of light years away, and assimilate the life forms in the galaxy into omnipotent units. If the omnipotents continue to use the nanoturret to kill foreign races, it is unknown how many years have passed, and even the dream of the dream can hardly imagine how many equally terrifying final strategies the omnipotents have in their hands. At this point, Yimen looked at Gao Qiang. If you still insist on destroying the probe after I've said that, don't blame me for not reminding you in advance. This. Gao Qiang frowned. According to what Yimen said, he really couldn't expose his coordinates at will. After all, according to Gao Qiang's experience, the ultimate strategic level weapons have the ability to pose a threat to himself. But if it's really like what Yimen said, what should I do with the probe that is approaching me now? At this moment. Beep beep beep. The sound of the communication dialing sounded in Gao Qiang's ears. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 471. All of the people present immediately looked towards the source of the sound. But they saw that Shasha had slipped to the side of a technician and borrowed his console. And she sent a communication request to the outside world. Yimen was stunned for a moment and couldn't help asking, "What are you doing?" "Turn on the voice." Shasha blinked cutely. "Didn't you just say that you can't eat some intelligent machines, iron lumps and the like?" "Shasha wants to see them, maybe Shasha can eat them." At this point, Shasha once again ignited her fighting spirit. "No, I just said so many words, and you only heard the 3 words can't eat." Yimen's eyes were full of disbelief. If she didn't know Gao Qiang's miraculous ability and was afraid that Gao Qiang would use his last words to take her away after his death, would she have said so much just now? As a result, Shasha not only heard the 3 words can't eat, but also directly transmitted the unencrypted communication signal to the outside world. Once this signal is sent out, the intelligent machines will definitely know their coordinates. Even other races may be able to roughly guess something. Even as a great mythical race Dreamweaver, Yimen couldn't help but smack her tongue at the existence she was about to provoke. After all, her current body was just an ordinary human. But Sasha obviously didn't care. She waved her hand casually, "It's a small matter. Let's see how Sasha can perfectly solve this incident." At the same time, the probe also received the signal transmitted by the space station and synchronized the signal into the central main network of the intelligent machine. At this moment, dozens of mastermind-level intelligent machine lords have gathered in the central main network. And the images of these lords in the main network are all looking at the request sent by the probe. You have a new communication waiting to be connected. Faced with this communication request from an alien race, an intelligent machine lord has fallen into confusion. Logical error, unreasonable request, not in line with the worldview. The intelligent machine lord next to him glanced at it with his electronic eyes. "I have said that Milan's cognitive protocol should be updated." Some of the other intelligent machine lords also echoed. Only old protocols can be entangled with the reasonable and the unreasonable. Which antique software is Milan using? By the way, if there is no problem with my storage, the current probe number 119 is responsible for tracking the remaining forces of the Zeta tribe, right? Yes, another lord responded, but according to the algorithm, the probability that this communication was initiated by the Zeta lord is less than 0.001%. The scene fell silent instantly. Every Omnic lord is calculating at this moment, what is the meaning of this communication? If it is an alien race, due to the characteristics of the Dark Ages, their language is completely incommunicable with that of the Omnic race. Although the Omnic race can decipher the language of alien races, it often takes about 10 years to decipher a language from scratch. There are too many variables in these 10 years, and the cost effectiveness is far less than directly eliminating the opponent. Of course, the latter is also what the Omnic race is constantly committed to doing. But since the alien lord has no motivation to send this communication, then this communication, will it be initiated by other Omnic lords? Perhaps for carbon-based creatures, this idea is very whimsical. But for intelligent machines, this probability is not zero in the algorithm. Finally, an intelligent machine lord finished the calculation. "Those who are allowed to access the communication, please express your attitude." As an intelligent machine lord spoke, green light appeared above the heads of lords in the main network, indicating that the probe was allowed to access the communication. In the end, except for Milan, who was still in a logical dead loop, all the intelligent machine lords present voted in favor. After all, once the communication is connected, they are equivalent to completely mastering the position of the other party. And their communication with the other party has been forwarded by a layer of probes, which is a sure win in the algorithms of each lord. One vote against, allowing the probe to access the communication. The next moment, the communication was connected to the central main network of the intelligent machine. But looking at the picture that appeared in front of them, the intelligent machine lords present were a little confused. Because, in front of them, what appeared was actually human forces. In the past, after discovering the coordinates of the human gathering place, the Omnic lords present would launch the ultimate strategic weapons to attack without hesitation. But this time was different. They didn't understand why a group of humans would risk exposing the coordinates to dial this communication. After calculating for a while, an Omnic lord appeared in front of the communication. "I am Lord Ward, you can regard me as the representative of the Omnic lords. Then, tell me your intentions, human." Ward's voice came into the control room. But because the other party was not an Omnic unit made by humans. Therefore, to Gao Qiang, what the Omnic lord said in the picture was simply a language he couldn't understand at all. Sure enough, Without the war game to translate, there was no way for the different races to communicate normally. In the central main network, Ward naturally saw Gao Qiang's confused expression and couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He thought that there would be something special about this communication from humans. As a result, it seems that it may just be due to the other party's ignorance. The person on the other side of the communication should be the human lord who just entered this war game. He didn't understand the rules of this era at all, and his death was not unjust. With the emotion that other races would call disappointment, Ward was ready to disconnect the communication and was ready to use the ultimate strategic weapon. However, at this moment, Sasha suddenly spoke. 11100100. Ward's movements suddenly paused, and his electronic eyes looked at Sasha fiercely. Is the other party speaking the mechanical language of the ancient times? Humans will never learn to speak this language. Could it be that he made a mistake in his calculation, and the other party was not a human, but a mechanical unit in human skin? If his storage was correct, there was a path called the traitor in the Lord path, which should be able to do this. After realizing that the other party might be an intelligent machine in human skin, Ward's attitude obviously improved a lot. At the same time, he was also quickly translating what Sasha said. After all, this mechanical language is too old and has long been abandoned by most intelligent units. It still takes some time to pick it up again. Fortunately, unlike parsing the languages of other races, it only takes less than a minute for the intelligent mechanical unit to remaster the ancient mechanical language. After completing the language system update, Ward also understood the meaning of Sasha's words just now. Are you delicious? Can I have a bite? Wait, did he really understand?